Episode 8 was a perfect adaptation. It was pretty much copy and paste with added details to enhance the story. I can't think of one major change except we didn't get the rabbit scene, but I can live with that. It's not really important, but we all know about it because it went viral a couple of years ago. We did get a little bit more action in this episode than in the last two, but not as much as I thought we would. But that's okay, fight scenes are a waste if it doesn't add to the story. If Joel and Ellie took on the town like they did in the video game, it would have made no sense. Joel's in no shape to do that, and Ellie's just been traumatized. It's not realistic to expect them to fight their way out. And it makes sense that they would be able to get out without the townspeople interfering, because that slaughterhouse and what they slaughtered in it was a secret. They would have had it as far away from people as possible. The episode was very tense and just creepy overall. It starts with Joel fighting for his life. Ellie did what she could for him, and now she's waiting by his side. But they are running out of food and she has to leave him to go hunting. She first saw a rabbit, and I thought we were going to get the rabbit scene, but she tripped and fell, scaring the rabbit away. She then spots a deer and shoots it like Joel taught her to, but it doesn't go down there. Instead, it runs deeper into the woods where it's found dead by David and James. James is played by Troy Baker, the voice actor for Joel in the games. David and James are a part of a cult. David is actually the leader of the cult. David was a teacher before the apocalypse went down, and now he's a preacher. He teaches from the Bible, but definitely doesn't practice what he preaches. We later find out he's abusive to his flock, extremely controlling, and he's predatory. There's a darkness to him that he not only acknowledges, but seems to take pride in. He embraces his violent tendencies. Ellie sneaks up on the two men as they discuss what to do with the deer and strikes a deal to trade half the deer for penicillin. Joel needs the penicillin to fight off infections he got from the stab wound. She holds David hostage while James goes back to the town to get the medication. While James is away, David tries to convince her that he's a good person. In my experience, people that try to convince you that they're a good person usually aren't. It's the same with David. As James returns, David tells Ellie how he sent some of his men to a nearby town to gather supplies, and 3 out of the 4 men returned. The one that didn't make it back was killed by a man that was traveling with a little girl. James had a gun on Ellie, but David still gave her the penicillin. David offered to take her in, but Ellie took the medication and ran. She administered the penicillin to Joel as soon as she got back to him. We later find out that David's feeding his people stragglers because they're running out of food. Only a select few knew, but most of David's followers had no idea they were cannibals. He's also physically and psychologically abusive to them. He hits them but then tells them that he will always be there for them. That's abuse 101. The next day, David leads a small group in search of a man that killed one of their own. They were able to track Ellie to the neighborhood she was hiding Joel in. David orders them to take Ellie back alive, but the men, mainly James, don't want to. They were making enough noise for Ellie to find out about them. She knows Joel is in no shape to move, so she hands him a dagger and hops on the horse. She tried to lead them away from Joel, but her horse is shot by James. As she starts to lose consciousness, one of the men tells James to end her life, but David shows up just as he's about to pull the trigger. He picks her up in his arms and orders 2 of the men to drag the horse back to their settlement with him. The rest were to go door to door in search for Joel and deliver vengeance. One of the men find the house Joel was in, but Joel, even in his weakened state, was able to get the drop on him. David locks Ellie in a cage, and when she wakes up, he tries to manipulate and seduce her. He offers her power and a chance to be by his side and watches people spread out and thrive. Meanwhile, Joel captures the other 2 men that stayed behind. He tortures one of the men until he gave up the location of their town, and then he kills them both. We finally got to see Joel just lose it and go crazy after he realizes that Ellie was kidnapped. He's no longer pretending not to care about her, and through violence, we see his fatherly love. Violence in this episode is really important. We see Joel express his love through it, and we see Ellie save herself with it when she ends David's life. David, on the other hand, uses his violence to control and manipulate. David's trying to convince Ellie to be his right-hand man and also his child wife, and Ellie is having none of it. She breaks his fingers and tries to steal his keys so that she could free herself from the cage. From that violent act, David realizes he cannot ever hope to control Ellie like he controls his flock. He decides she's more trouble than she's worth and runs off to James. As they were about to end Ellie's life, she tells them she's infected and uses that moment of indecision from James to end his life and make a run for it. But David's not done with her. He chases after her with a cleaver. Their fight causes the building to catch on fire. David manages to pin her down and tries to take advantage of her and tells her all types of horrible things, like he likes the fighting and that there's no fear in love. That suggests he's done this before, maybe even to the girls in his flock. Ellie finds the cleaver that David dropped earlier and ends his life with it before he can go any further. She brings the cleaver down on him with all her might over and over again. Ellie was able to survive David's violence by using violence against him. She runs into Joel right after, and Joel calls her baby girl and tells her it's okay and that he's got her. And that's really wholesome because he used to call Sarah that. Ellie embraces him and they walk off into the woods. This was the second shortest episode, but probably top 2 for me. We got to see Ellie continue to fight against all odds, and that's what makes her such a great character. Joel's done pretending not to care and finally shows Ellie how much she means to him. She of course doesn't know it to the extent we do. She doesn't know he used to call Sarah baby girl. But we do, and we saw what he's capable of doing if it meant saving her, and that sets up the final perfectly.